Yo, Grinder School, we're back with part 2 of the Saturday Night Grinding series, resuming where we left off. So without any further ado, pause now if you want to look at this cartoon for any longer. It's now gone. We have 6 tables, not quite the same 6 tables, I think 4 of them are the same, and I had to take a little bit of a break, had to get a mug of tea. How British, yeah, I know. I had to get, it's actually fruit tea though, which is pretty nice. It's some kind of acaberry and something I've never heard of before, whatever those are. So this should help me talk for a bit longer, and we've got mostly the same tables here. We've got 3 the same and 3 new ones, as you can see from the HUD there on our stats. But Saturday night is progressing. It's now 10 past 10 PM and the tables are gradually getting softer and softer, so I have a night of grinding ahead of me to look forward to, and you guys get the pleasure of joining me for the next hour or so of that. So same deal as last time. Just to explain for anyone who hasn't seen the first part, this is the second part of a 2-part series. It's basically the same session, although like some of these guys are the same that we were playing with before. I've been talking about what was going on before and certain things about the video. So if you've not watched part 1, you always hear instructors say this in videos. It's like such a standard thing to say. But yeah, go back and watch the first part of this because it's pretty cool. This guy cold calls, we're like, and this guy squeezes. He doesn't really 3-bet much. We're not in good shape here. I'm going to fold King Jack. I think it's pretty standard. We're going to be min raising here. Again, this guy's very fit or foldy from the small blind to big blind. No real reads, but min raise should be the optimal sizing in that sort of spot. When you're playing micro stakes against very weak players, you don't need to consider min raising quite so much, because you kind of just want more money in the pot when you have position, because they're just going to play so straightforwardly. They're going to fold to so many of your c bets. It's going to make life so easy on you that it's not going to be a big deal. But against these guys who'll play back a bit more at 50 no limit and a 3-bet me pre-flop, when they're actually contendering a good amount of the time, then that's why a min raise here is a lot better. Any suited cards here I think will be good. This colour here means short stacker. Basically these are 40 big blinders. Thank God you don't get 20 big blinders anymore, because they were a nightmare. These guys, they can still be quite annoying. They create a stack size that when they 3-bet you small, you don't get a good price to continue for implied odds at all, and you pretty much have to fold because the jam, like any 4-bet you make is a jam and it commits you and it doesn't give you a very good price in the 4-bet. So intentionally for that reason they 3-bet a lot versus late position opens, and it works fairly well. And if they're decent players, usually they're not, thankfully, but if they are, then it can be quite difficult. But most of them at 50 NL are not by any means short stack pros, so you don't usually have to worry. I should probably just make this like 120. Don't really need to make it 150 here. He's going to have a lot of just stuff that's missed that flop that he's going to be folding. He's a net. He's not going to have the imagination to really play back at us there. Really shitty turn because he has a lot of 6s in his range. We do pick up some more equity against better pocket pairs or better 7s. I think pretty standard check back. Hard push to get called by much worse, and I'll be folding the river if he leads here, because he just doesn't really have any air in his range apart from hands he's turning into a bluff. And for that sizing, I'm not even sure he's turning too many hands into a bluff, so I don't see why he would. So I think it's a pretty easy fold with just top pair. I'll defend with the King 9, getting a great price. Pretty happy about it. I'm going to donk here. I've got a few backdoor draws, not great ones, but I don't want to really check raise, and I just want to see how this guy's going to react. I'm going to check call the turn against floats. I could bet again. I mean, betting again might even be best, to be honest. So we get called by draws, we get called by... Maybe we get called again by sort of middling pairs and things like that, but check calling allows him to bet all his floats, so probably has its merits as well. I'm probably going to check fold rivers. I don't really expect to get barreled too frequently here. Obviously a hand like Queen Jack is... I'd expect him to bet the river. I think it's a mistake by him not to make a semi-thin value bet there in the river. So that just says that he misses these spots that to a lot of players do seem thin but aren't actually thin when you think like my range is so capped. I mean, I don't really have ace queen king queen there very often. He effectively just has the best hand and he's not betting it when he can get called by worse, so pretty big mistake there actually by him. He should definitely be betting in that spot. I think did I lead there? Yeah, I'd be a little bit confused. Yeah, I must have led, which I think is fine against someone that's I mean, check calling would be my standard. I think leading is probably okay as well. So we can get called by ace high all day from a weaker stationy sort of player. Again, I'm min-raising here. This guy seems to be quite active with his 3-bets and stuff, and we want to be losing the minimum. He calls turn. I mean, the problem here is that we've now put ourselves in this awkward spot by sort of leading. Like, usually I would check call, but I don't know what he thinks of our range here, so it gets a little bit confusing. This is a terrible table, by the way. Like, I'm only staying here for the sake of the video. It's really bad, table 2. And he makes it quite big, and we're going to have to play guessing games in the river as well. If he's a fish, he might even be depolarized and have like 9s and just not really know what he's doing, and might bet 2 and all that. It just gets really messy, and we don't really have the reads to do much on the river, so I like to just fold there, but it's kind of not really happy about it. We've got a complete short stack here. We don't want to be like bloating the pot pre-flop because fold equity will be very minimal. And we have the nut low on a board that he always has something on almost, so we'll just check fold every street here. Not stabbing at this because I'll get called by like any pair. Oh wow, 7 high is good, sir. I can't believe he has a flush draw there and he doesn't even bet like at all. It's pretty ridiculous. Easy 3-bet for value there with queens, and an easy c-bet with our gut shot here on table 5. And I'll open a little bit wider here because I have nits ahead of me, so I think 1.25 is good. And here 3x is going to be fine from the cutoff. This big blind looks a little bit like he has stationary tendencies from the blinds perhaps, so don't want to be giving him too great a price to flat. We get called, and you can go either way on this board. I mean, you can check and sort of like bluff catch, but I think like betting is also good. There's plenty of draws that can call us. There's flush draws, and there's also like plenty lower pocket pairs and things like that can call us. Might even call us with ace high for one street. We don't want to get raised, that's the only disadvantage to betting. So maybe better to check back just when we have no idea how aggressive or passive this guy is. He min raises us, which to me is, it's pretty much going to be a sign of strength at this stage more often than not. We're getting a good price to peel 1 if he's not going to be betting the turn or whatever, which is a possibility. I think it's marginal. Like, I'm not thrilled about peeling here, but like sometimes he'll be giving up. He doesn't need to be giving up too often for it to be okay, but it's definitely pretty marginal. And when he bets the turn, I think we're just going to have to give up. But folding the flop there might be an option. Checking back the flop is another way of playing it, which is going to be fine, especially without reads. Ace 8, I'm happy just to call against someone that's stealing what I assume to be stealing fairly wide, blind versus blind. I'm going to check back my ace high. I don't think we get any better hands to fold or worse hands to call us on the flop necessarily. And he bets the turn, which is a bit weird. I guess I'll just fold for now. I mean, I expect him to c-bet air fairly often there. And also we have to think about river bets if we peel that turn. We've got very marginal showdown value. Table 5 is fairly close. It's not the best board to c-bet. We have 2 good overs in the back there, flush draw. And yeah, the guy looks like he's maybe, I don't know, he's probably just a reg, but he could be, I've not played with him before, so possibly he's a weaker player, I'm not sure. It's kind of whatever spot. If I didn't have as much equity as that, I would definitely, like if I had no equity, I'd definitely just be giving up. This guy opens hijack, kind of wide. I'm going to peel here with queen jack off. I'm just getting such a great price. I can't imagine folding. This guy checks to us. We flop like the monster nut draw. And king queen 10 against a random, like, it's just so likely that he has a better piece of this than us and isn't going to fold it. So I think check folding there is fine. Our equity is very minimal. Our draw is bad. It's not a draw that we care about having to fold because it just is what you'd call the ignorant end of the straight draw or whatnot. It's not going to be profitable even when we make it, and our pair on its own is not going to be good very often, and if we make it set, it's also very tainted out. So I just treat my hand as a piece of shit there, and I like to check fold it on a board that hits my opponent's range very well. This dude is opening very wide. I feel like I'm going to get 4-bet a lot as a bluff. I'm not happy 3-bet shipping this, but I am happy flatting it. I think it's easily strong enough in position against someone who's, if you're comfortable post-flop, against someone who's likely just light a lot. This guy leads here on 9-6-5 two-tone. A flop they can have a lot of draws and things on that aren't going anywhere. We have like very bad equity, so I'm just going to give up. He checks through us. I don't know what to make of that. I'm always going to bet here the first time. A, it gives me information about how light he's giving up blind versus blind, whether he's check cally. Turns out he does check call. We could fire multiple barrels here. Now we've made the 3, but I feel like a lot of people do just go into sort of call down mode. We've picked up some more equity though, but I don't expect to have the best hand all that often, so I think firing 3 here is okay, and I'm definitely not going to give up at 2. I might one and done it just to see, like fire 1 and then give up just to see if he is check folding and to pick up the times he is check folding. But with the extra equity now, I think, and a lot of rivers, I think we can fire 3 here and it's potentially okay, because he just has a lot of like 5x in his range and just random stuff. That's really weird, like, to then get raised there. I'm going to defend king queen to the 3-bet. This session's very hectic so far, just getting played back out in absolutely every hand I play. I don't really think there's anything we can do here. It's a very strange line though, it makes almost no sense. I don't even know what the hell I can put him on with this line, but it's such a bad price to just like jam here, and I don't know anything about him, and he has to be turning something with showdown value into a bluff there, or he's like turn 2 pair or something like that, because he's just going to c-bet if he has air in the flop. He's not going to be check calling the flop. Here we've got a very standard call and then just calling the turn as well. Just allowing him to bluff the turn. Basically there's no reason to stick the rest on the flop, because the times he has air, we just want him to bluff the turn. And he gets there with his draw, which is pretty standard and fine. A7 I'm willing to fold blind versus blind against a 19-6. Just expect him to be pretty damn tight there and not have all the disjointed random air that ace high would normally play well against, that would be in a looser opener's range there. I think 1.25 here is okay. It sucks that we've got this guy like 3-betting down a throw every single time. It's not a good table at all, this one. We've got a fish here, but it's kind of outweighed by these two guys to our, I suppose we have position on this one, but four-handed we're going to be seeing a lot of 3-bets here, and it's going to be pretty awkward when we're 6-tabling and doing commentary at the same time. But I'm going to stay for the sake of the video because I'm brave like that or whatever. Ace Jack. I think we open. No, we didn't open. We flatted blind versus blind. Just going to check fold this board. I have no equity at all. I don't want to check raise or lead here. I just don't think it's going to work often enough. I think it's fine to give up with 7-6, just because a fish is going to have loads and loads of hands that are like all over this board. He isn't going to fold them. Now that the turn pairs, he may not even fold like a low pocket pair or something for 1-bet, so I think just like giving up is going to be fine. He bets river. I feel like most people, if they're just checking down here with air, are just going to continue to check down. They're going to stab on the turn, and they won't wait till the river to stab if they have air. So I just think he has an ace or maybe a jack that he's value betting here just most of the time. So, and here obviously this guy likely has the nuts all the time, so pretty easy fold when we get 3-bet and then 4-bet. For some reason when I stick the ground just go background on, I get loads of crazy action. I don't know if it's whether my eyes aren't used to it because I don't normally play with this background. That was crazy, like 4-bet and 8s in that spot. Strange. Or whether it's just been variance. But yeah, every time I stick it on, I feel more overwhelmed. I think it's just my eyes need to adjust to the new colours and sort of aren't as quick at darting about the place or whatever. This tea is seriously nice. It's good for a winter Scottish night, that's for sure. King 7, kind of marginal. We'll just go ahead and open it because we're lag darted, and I'll flat the king queen. Not too happy 3-betting to get it in here. Definitely not happy 3-bet folding. should play fine against his range. I like a lead here. I think this board's really good for my range. I get him to fold a lot of ace high, a lot of just random overcard hands, hopefully. See how he reacts to donks, and I don't like any option that includes checking too much. I get peeled here. The question is whether he has ace high in his range. I would think not, and I would think that by firing... But do I ever lead ace high? Like, really? Probably not too often. I could fire turn, fire river. I could give up. I don't think it matters too much. But if the guy ever does float ace high on the flop, then it's just really bad to be betting turn bet river there. Like, we're just losing so much money, so I like just to give up. At least we don't know that yet. I would think usually people fold ace high to a donk there, but it is possible. It's not actually the best barrel card for us. It's okay. So this is probably the most poker I've played on a Saturday in quite a while. Been playing for, I think, 4 or 5 hours now today in total. Been taking little breaks, but oops, that was supposed to be a 3x. I don't want to be min opening from the hijack. That's going to be bad because with our range usually, this hand likes multi-way pots, but most of our range we don't want to be getting loads of multi-way pots. We want to be isolating people, isolating fish, c-betting with fold equity, all these things. Easy fold with ace jack against the squeeze from the complete net. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here with bottom pair. It's not really strong enough for me to want to show it down against this guy, and yeah, we have some equity when called. It's more like a semi-bluff. And sort of weaker looking player is going to have a lot of just random overcards and things that we can pick up the pot against, but we have no real reads about how he plays on the turn, so to check back with such marginal showdown value, then play guessing games isn't really going to be the best line there. I'm not sure what I'm going to do after this video, so let me know guys if you have any ideas. I may get another one of my students to do some coaching videos, because I've heard from Code Red that they've been going down very well. You guys have been really liking those. You've been saying you've been liking them, so we'll maybe find another student. Still coaching, by the way, just while we're at it. If anyone's looking for one-on-one tuition, just PM me for details about rates and how it works and what sort of things we can do, and we can arrange a block of coaching sessions. And possibly you'll be one of the lucky ones that I'll do a free coaching video with if you're one of my students already. I tend not to include the ones I record as actual coaching sessions. It's more like a sort of thank you to the student and a good way to show your appreciation for the custom and, you know, give something back to Grinder School as well. And you can help with that if you're one of my students by featuring in a video, and I get to interrogate your game live, and you'll be under the pressure having to answer in front of all your Grinder School peers, so be fun times. My girlfriend unfortunately doesn't have time to grind these days. She just plays sometimes for fun. She's got too much going on basically with the PhD that she's doing and stuff, so it's a bit of a shame because she was a really good student of mine, but nevertheless there'll be more students I can do these videos with, so just let me know if you're interested. But I do it with my current students, so it does involve purchasing some one-on-one coaching as well. Or if you're already one of my students watching this, then, you know, first come first serve, let me know and we can do a coaching video, because I think I'm definitely looking forward to doing a few more of these. They're fun to do, they're nice social video, and it's good for people to see someone being taught directly and how they're learning, and sort of it's more directed learning, I guess. This guy is opening fairly wide here. He's folding to 100% of 3-bets. I like a 3-bet here. Don't want to make it too big, but I think gaining the initiative to c-bet profitably is fine. He'll also continue with worse hands that I dominate and things like that as well. So it's probably the worst ace I'd do it with, but I think it's okay for sure. And just make very small sort of bets on this flop and turn. If I go, I think he'll have like plenty of ace-x in his range, as well as a few better aces. It's usually looking to get this in by river. The jack sucks because now we're just splitting with every other ace X, so I think just... And then we're not getting him to fold either, so I don't like shoving in this situation. So we're just losing to the... We're chopping with the better aces now. It's a shame, because we're definitely plus EV to jam there against hands exactly like that on other rivers, so it's just a bit unfortunate. Queen 10, I know nothing about this guy. He's shorter. Well, I know he's fairly tight so far. I think it's a very easy fold. I would defend that usually against cut-off button opens from aggressive wide openers, well, from wide openers, because it's just going to play really well. But against someone potentially a bit tighter, who we don't even have, we're not even very deep with, so when we flop the nuts, we don't have as good implied odds and stuff like that. It's going to be a fairly easy fold for us. And this guy, as we've seen, is opening a lot and is stationary versus 3-bet, so I'm going to 3-bet ace queen for value. It's not often I 3-bet ace queen against under the gun opens for value, but I think it's fine against this guy. He's just continuing with so much worse. I feel like he's definitely the collie type. I don't think I feel comfortable getting this in, but I expect him just to peel with so many worse hands that we're going to have a 3-bet pot with initiative in position, and if he 4-bets, I think we're going to be looking at a very tight range, so I think it's fine. Here I'm just going to make a standard c-bet, look to take this down. He has some kings in his range. We have plenty of equity here, like this can't need to work too often. He has a lot of lower pairs and sevens and stuff as well. I feel like a jam might just be the best play with all this equity, if we can get him to fold all those other hands. And he actually just calls with nines, wow. If we think he's so stationary that he doesn't fold nines, we shouldn't ever take that line, obviously. But I expected him not to call with nines there. That's pretty weird, but just a total station, I guess. Like, so much equity there, though. Like any ace, any queen are usually good against those hands if he does call any heart. If he has a king, you know, we still have any ace or heart, we have decent equity. We don't need folds that often. It's probably like slightly plus EV if I had to guess. Certainly don't think it's bad. It's this damn grinder skill background, man. Get a little bit of run bad each time I put it on, it seems. It's because it's rigged. Stars is rigged. Joker stars. One thing you do encounter more on Saturdays against people like that is just a lot more variance, because people do just play such wide ranges and pots get very big in non-standard spots you might not be used to, and yeah, sometimes you got to deal with a lot of variance, but overall it's definitely plus EV. Making fish fold is something I don't usually do in 3-bet pots, but when I have that much equity I feel almost compelled to make him fold his 7x, to make him fold his lower pocket pairs that there should be a good amount of combos of. And he's probably not opening too many kings. He's probably opening, like, you know, ace king, which we have a blocker 2, king queen, which we also have a blocker 2, and then maybe king jack, king 10. So yeah, it's probably marginal break even-ish. But you could sit with Stove and sort of do an equity calculation, work out how often he does fold there, or how often he needs to fold. If we have no equity, it would be suicide, obviously, because he just needs to fold so much more often. And like, if we bet the turn, like, in order to make sure he folds these lower pairs, I think we do need to be jamming. Like, there's such a different mentality with a fish with his whole stack compared to just like another bet that he can just click call and decide on the next street, talk himself into calling down. So with the stack to pot ratio that we left ourselves with there in the flop, I think it's definitely, it's going to be a pretty easy jam. It's basically a pot size shove. This is weird, we're getting a lot of downtime with 6 tables, which doesn't usually happen. If we don't shove that river, the best line is just going to be to check back and then just jam. Sorry, if we don't shove the turn, it's just to check back and then just jam any ace or heart river, basically. And just to go to showdown, otherwise, like, you'd never check back then and bluff river because you're getting looked up a lot more lightly than you are by betting turn. If I had a value hand there, he doesn't know this obviously, but I would definitely just bet like third pot on the turn and then shove river. Just make sure I get him to call down with these weaker hands. I think most of these guys are just clicking buttons, like these sort of Saturday night recreational players, so it's not the case that they're really thinking about our range or anything, so we can kind of afford to be a lot more unbalanced versus them than we would be, say, versus a reg or whatever. Again, here, like, showdown values, bleh, but I got a lot of sort of fold equity on the flop with my bottom pair. It's another sort of semi-bluff, sort of standard c-bet spot. And again here, I don't think our showdown value is sufficient to be checking back. We have a backdoor flush draw. We can barrel like some overcard turns, definitely, because you can have ace high here. If we get like a queen king, we can certainly barrel any heart we can barrel. We're getting a lot of folds straight away, so on the jack I don't think we get folds from anywhere near enough stuff. That's obviously a great river. It's one I'm probably just going to be calling on here. Either he has an ace or he has quads, and if I jam he'll get it in. I don't think he's ever bet calling like a worse hand here, so it's pretty standard call. And he will have a jack like semi-frequently as well, so it'd be a big mistake to shove that river there. But of course we would never consider folding. I'm increasing the size of my open here in table 2, just because this fish in the big blind is so bad. I want more money in the pot when I've got a hand that's dominating like so much of his range here. I don't think it changes his range much or at all. I think it's very inelastic. He's calling the same hands, anything suited, anything pretty, to 3.5x as he is to 3x, so I think it's fine. And here we may want to make it bigger against this fish, but we have a drawback on table 1, and that's that this guy's 3-betting really wide. He's been 3-betting in position, and this guy's been 3-betting as well. So when a 15-12 flats are open here, like he's all over this flop, we don't have any real equity or fold equity, so it's a standard give up, and when he donks I'm just going to fold to it. He's got a strong range, and he should be donking that flop pretty wide, just with any sort of 2 overs with a backdoor flush draw and all this sort of stuff, but there's nothing we can really do about it. And I'll c-bet here just to not turn my hand face up. I can get called by worse, then I'll check back turns and evaluate rivers on table 5. Like, I think checking back against a regular here is definitely a mistake. It just allows him to play so perfectly against you. Just turns your hand completely face up and basically says, hey, I have like jacks through kings. Play optimally, please. And we don't want to be doing that against a reg. Against a fish who is aggro and mindless, perhaps we should check back and then just call down. But even then, we still get called by a lot of worse stuff. By c-betting, it's almost like we have just an ace rag there, just without as many blockers to other aces. So pretty easy c-bet. We have our poster here. If it checks around to me, I'm definitely going to be opening wider, even out of position than I would normally. I think Jack 10 suited is a very easy sort of ISO, just because the poster has like any two cards. So I've said this sort of thing before. I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's going to be more profitable to open wider because you're just getting more folds pre-flop, and he just has a weaker range. And yeah, it's not like he's limped. He's shown no intention to actually play the pot. He's just posted the blind and then checked. So we can get away with opening, ISOing wider than we would if he'd limped. Here we have to be a bit careful just because this guy's going to be punishing us a lot, so just tightening up my ISO range a little bit because of that. If I wasn't making a video, I might, if I could like move seats or whatever, like even just to here, that would be better. He doesn't have immediate position on us, but it certainly means we need to be a little bit more careful with the hands that we're isolating the fish with, because he's going to be aware that we're isolating the fish wide. He's going to be playing back against that and all that sort of thing. And he's got a very annoying stack that a 4-bet by us like almost commits us if we 3x and he sort of 10x 3-bets. Like we can't really 4-bet fold, which sucks. From a stack size point of view, it's definitely not optimal. It's not a good situation to have a 80 big blind 3-better to your left at all. It's going to make things a bit difficult. But for the sake of the video, it's always good to stay and sort of try to deal with these situations, because you will encounter them. And sometimes you'll have a fish here that you don't want to leave the table for, so you're going to have to put up with the reg. Like, if there's no fish here, and you're table selecting normally, you're just going to be... This guy's such a station, he's already seen me bluffing things that I'm not going to fire more than one here. He might even call me down with like pocket 8s and stuff, so it's not going to be good. I'll flat ace... I was going to flat ace Jack if I didn't time out. Couple of reasons. Don't want to 3-bet, don't know how he's reacting, can't do it for value, don't want to turn it into a bluff. And I've got a fish here who I had position on that I'd very much like to play a pot with when I dominate a lot of his range. King Queen Jack with an underpair is pretty awful flop. I think check folding is good here. If we had like ace x or 10x, it's a much better c-bet spot because we just have more live outs. We don't have many live outs here. We have showdown value against most of his other hands. 7s, 8s and 9s and 10s, fair enough we don't, but a lot of time he's just going to have like queen x, jack x. He's flattened a bit wider than most do, so he's going to be playing more broadways and less pairs than, not less pairs but proportionately less pairs than a tighter tag would be playing there. So it's a very good board for his range, and our equity's terrible, and we have showdown value against most of the worst hands, and yeah, I think it's a good spot just to check fold. He's quite passive as well, so I don't expect him to stab like too light. He may just take a showdown with ace high or baby pairs and things. So yeah, let me know what you think about the 6 tabling. I think I was a little bit sharper in the first part. This is the second part, so perhaps I did take a little break, but I've been playing all day, so if there are any sort of gaps in sort of talking, or I don't fill downtime all that well, that might be why, but I'm trying to... I didn't set any topics aside this time. Usually when I make a video I'll 4-table, and I'll have a bunch of topics like ready, basically, for downtime, because when you 4-table that happens. But 6-tabling, the last video we just got action galore, so it was just sort of, we had so much stuff to talk about. This one isn't quite so action heavy. This is a great spot, blind versus blind, because it's just a spot where regs think you're full of shit all the time. Here we're going to get this in 3 streets in table 2, so sort of half pot jam is really standard here. It's the best sizing, it gives him room to play back, gives him room to float and just do weird shit. We could check raise this turn. That's certainly an option if we think he's very floaty, but we don't want him to check back with a hand that, you know, like a worse pair like jacks or 10s or whatever. He may bet these, we don't know. Like, checking certainly going to be an option to let him bet floats, but he can also just take a showdown with stuff like ace queen. He's not necessarily even betting these hands. So I think just betting and jamming the river, we have the best hand so often, so doing that for value is going to be the best line. But the drawback is that he folds a lot of floats, like possibly he has like king, queen, you know, weaker aces, floats without as much showdown value that are just going to stab on the turn, and we can make an extra bet against those just by check jamming the turn. I think once we check call the turn, we don't get jammed on the river too often, so I'd rather just jam right there and make sure he doesn't check back like jacks on the river or something like that. But maybe better to check jam that turn. It's kind of close. Against this weaker player, I think 3xing is fine, because there's no one, and this has nothing to do with the fact that we have aces, this is just what we're going to be doing with our whole range here, so I think 3xing is probably the standard. Just get a bit more money into the pot against a weaker player. And here it's just pretty much going to be a standard 4-bet. This guy's not 3-betting too wide, so he is going to have it fairly often, and people spaz a lot at 50 and L6 max as well, so... And I've got the same sizing here, obviously it's balanced between bluffs and value with my 4-bets. Flatting is also going to be okay. If he was 3-betting a bit more and I thought he was folding to 4-bets all the time, then I would just flat, but because he's just not 3-betting much, I think it's very valuable just to be getting it in against his ace-king before he misses the flop and doesn't get it in, or getting it in against like 10s, jacks, queens before an ace or king high board comes down or whatever, you know. It's just, he's going to have a decent amount there, just due to his 3-bet percentage. Again, a lot of big pairs here. Hopefully we can get some stacks to go with them. We've just 3-bet this guy in a very similar spot, so I mean our image is certainly quite 3-betty. I'm just going to 3-bet again with queens, I think it's standard. We might use some 4-bet bluffs and stuff this time, who knows. He just lost the pot as well, so perhaps he doesn't feel like giving us a break right now. Pretty standard 5x ISO with jacks. Again, I don't want to turn my hand too face up here. By checking, I think betting is slightly better, because a good player is just going to know exactly what you have basically when you check here, because you're not checking air, you're not checking the nuts, so you're just checking this sort of medium range that he's going to be able to judge quite well what to do against it. And what I'll usually do here against someone that thinks getting a little fed up is probably just check turn and then check fold river, because it looks like I'm just calling down I think when I call the turn there, so I don't think he's aggressive enough to be like betting the next two streets as a bluff or anything. So, and now I think it looks very value if we go ahead and bet, so I think we should just check and probably check fold, because I don't think he bets any worse hands there. He just has a weak ace or a medium ace if he bets river, so I think just check folding is fine. 7's a very light peel he's made against us there on the flop. Just take a couple of notes there on his tendencies. We get a very good river here, so I'm just going to go ahead and bet for value against this stationary looking guy. Should have plenty 7x, ace high, stuff that's just going to look us up there. And when he folds, bust draw is pretty much a huge part of his range. This is light here. I did just 4-bet this guy, so I expect him to be kind of in line. With his 3-betting, he's folding his blinds so much that it's probably going to be okay. Just depends what level he's on really, but most of the time these sort of straightforward guys aren't going to mess with me, like after I've shown that I'm 4-betting a lot or whatever. And not even necessarily that I'm 4-betting a lot, but just that I 4-bet him, so he doesn't want that to happen again because he had to fold last time. Usually the tighter the player, the more sort of basic level they'll be on, and the less likely they're going to be to sort of level you and say, oh, he won't expect me to 3-bet light here, so I'm going to do it. That's more like something a more active looking reg would do, so you can sort of, I say this all the time as well, but you can infer a lot of stuff about people's game just based upon like little things, such as how nitty they are in general. Like their VPIP and PFR is sort of determines how nitty they are in general, how imaginative, how creative they are. Generally, the more laggy, the more 3-betty, the more sort of floaty, the more imaginative they are, basically. So, if these things are present, like they have a tendency to float, to 3-bet, to to barrel, to open really wide under the gun or anything like that, it just means they're less ABC, they're more creative, and you can credit them with a sort of higher level, deeper level of thinking. Not necessarily a good level of thinking, but you can sort of expect them to be taking more aggressive lines and giving themselves reasons to do more aggressive stuff and shit like that. But whereas if a guy's like very tight, very straightforward, just very ABC, one and done, doesn't barrel, doesn't check raise, all this sort of stuff, then just take him for face value, sort of level 1 thinking, and don't level yourself too hard against these guys, because they're not going to be like levels ahead trying to own you in all these different spots. It's just not really not something you see from them. This guy again, he's very fit or fold. I don't want to be check calling and get loads of folds here and get called by gut shots and draws and things, then get to showdown, and just a pretty easy lead, I think. And we have the best hand, and that's going to happen. He probably has like King 10 or something like that. Or a worse 7 with a draw, that's also possible. I was sure that was going to be King 10, I would just be like, bam, look how good I am at reading hands, and you guys were like, whoa, he guessed it. But no such luck this time. It happens though, like, I've been watching my girlfriend play, and like some fish is just so face up, I've been like, he has jacks, watch, and then he has jacks. And it's like, yeah, and you sort of realise that all these years of poker have enabled you to hand read very obvious players very well, and it's kind of satisfying when it happens. So obviously you put people on a range and they have more than one thing, but sometimes by accident you get it right because it's a big part of their range, and that feels kind of good. Everyone wants to be like a soul reader, like a playmaster. That's why everyone's so spazzy, like when you move up, because they all just want to be the playmaster. They all just want to be coming up with all these genius plays that they see people make on TV or whatever. And that's why sometimes in these games it can be good just to be very solid and not be going too crazy. You might think I'm crazy because I take a lot of unconventional lines and things like that, but my foundations I feel are still quite in line with sort of ABC poker, even though I do find exceptions to those sort of spots. I'll just fold ace jack here. I mean, I just don't have enough equity to mess around, and he's very tight. It'd be okay to put in a little raise there. He's also barreling 100% so far. It's probably not a big sample, but still, I don't want to float there with no equity, no backdoor draws when there's so few turns I can continue on. If I have a backdoor draw or something, or even like a gut shot and there's more turns I can continue on, then I much prefer floating there. But without those assets, I think it's fine just to give up. Now, how wide is he open? He's opening a lot in that position, so I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet bluff here with King Jack off. It's got a couple of good blockers, and it's a pretty decent choice of hand to do it with in position. It's going to play okay, if called. And the blockers are important here, certainly against like ace, king, kings, and jacks. Decreases the combos of his nut hands a bit. And yeah, again, taggish tight players like straightforward, expect straightforward things. Don't expect them to 4-bet bluff you in these spots. Guy like this, expect it all day. Like this guy, not so much. Kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Here we get 3-bet by an 18-15 guy. He's been somewhat active here, but not like super active with his 3-bets. This is kind of a close spot. How many tables is this guy on? Oh, loads of tables. Like shitloads and shitloads of tables. I guess I don't really want to 4-bet then, because I just feel like I was going to 4-bet call, but I think it's kind of marginal-ish. Flat end's also kind of meh. 4-bet calling's usually my standard here, but he seems kind of, again, he's kind of taggish. He's like 18-15, low 3-bet percentage. It's kind of exploitable to fold there, but I don't think he's going to exploit it, if you see what I mean. I don't think he's going to start 3-betting me more. He doesn't 3-bet that much, and we were just saying earlier that he's quite a tight, straightforward looking guy, so I think the fold with 9s is kind of just about okay. And it's generally just a fold because neither of the other options are good. 4-bet folding is awful. If you 4-bet, you should 4-bet call there because you're going to have okay equity, and the folds you get are going to make it decent. But yeah, it's not a great option, and flatting out position there is going to be a nightmare to play against someone who's c-betting, and it's not going to be a good situation, so that's why the folding is okay. If he is 3-betting like 10%, then a few things change. Firstly, he's going to expect to get played back up more, so he's going to be jamming lighter, possibly as a bluff over 4-bets with small pairs, ace-x, hands that we actually do very well against. And also, he's going to be folding to the 4-bet a lot as well, just because he has these weak hands that can't continue. So 4-bet calling is my standard there against someone who 3-bets more. He 3-bets kind of a decent amount so far, but not too much, so just about okay with the fold. So hope that's relatively clear. There's certainly nothing terrible about folding there, and don't feel like a compulsion to continue just because you have 9s cut off versus button. The guy's not by no means like a crazy 3-better so far, so try not to talk yourself into a bad line there, because yeah, your 4-bet call line isn't great, and your flat line certainly isn't great either. If we had a good alternative, then we'd go for it, but in that spot I don't think we do. So yeah, I'm fair fold sometimes. Like, you'll see me fold 9s there, then you see me like do something crazy with like Jack 3 in some other spot and be like, where's the logic? But I assure you there is some. Ace Queen will just 3x from the cutoff, trying to play a few more bigger pots with this fish in the big blind here. This guy's a bit of a concern in terms of our whole range. With Ace Queen, we happily flat a 3-bet from him, but with our range as a whole, it's kind of, if we didn't have the fish, would be 1.25ing, 2.5xing I should say. So I hope I've made my sort of descriptions of my opens and my ISO sizes quite clear. If you've got any other questions, because I know a lot of people at one point were looking for more videos and more talk about bet sizing and why raise sizes differ so much in different spots, so I try to explain that as fully as possible, but if you need any more explanation, just ask me on the thread, because I won't always go into why. I'll sometimes touch on it, but I'm not going to mundanely go through every single spot where I vary my sizing pre-flop, because it's just going to get a bit ridiculous. This is another great spot, because we've just been 3-betting the hell out of this guy, and he hasn't. Has he been to a showdown with us yet? Yeah, he has. He's seen his 3-bet jacks, but this is obviously still going to be another 3-bet. Flop a pretty big draw here. One that we're definitely happy to fill against either or both of these guys. We have like so much equity here. I'm just going to go ahead and make a big raise to try and win it here, and if not, then you know, I can get it in even against worse draws, against a lot of random stuff. I was hoping he would just jam the turn, because it's like a little bit tricky to work out the best way to get value if he checks, because I think a shove is very scary there, so what I'd probably do is bet like 450 and stick the rest in the river. Again, people that are clicking buttons aren't going to be too bothered about what does your sizing mean. They're more going to be bothered about, oh look, a good price. It's not going to be like, I wonder why he's giving me that good a price. That doesn't usually cross their mind. It's more just, look, an awesome price. This is light as hell, because it's like the worst hand in my range ever, but he's so fair foldy so far. Oh god, it's so sick. Oh man, I have to fold to this. Like, my hand just so bad. Plays so terribly. If I had like 5-2 suited, I'd peel. But yeah, he's like very fair foldy so far. So I think any 2 cards are pretty much fine to do that with from that position. Going to continue. Well, this guy 3-bet a little bit. I'll give him a little bit of a break, I guess. He's very tight under the gun. I'm just so dominated here. Yeah, I'm getting an awesome price, but my hand is like utter shit against his range. With jacks here, like usually I would. How tight is he under the gun? 15%. Yeah, usually I would just flat, but I'm probably going to be. I'm probably going to be 3-bet jamming here, just because I've been 3-betting him so much recently that he's bound to like snap and 4-bet bluff me one of these days soon. So I think it's going to be fine to just go ahead and 3-bet jam. Now I think squeezing is still definitely on the cards here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than usual just to give him a bit of room if he wants to 4-bet bluff, because I feel like one is kind of imminent. Here, when we have the nuts in the turn, we'll just jam over this. He has a strong hand almost all the time. He's not bluffing the river if we call and check, so easy jam, just get it in now while we can. If this guy 4-bets, I'm going to jam over it and be like kind of happy about it. He'll also call us with a lot worse pairs. We've already seen that he defends pretty much all his baby pairs and stuff to 3-bet, so very happy to squeeze jacks here for value. Make a small bet, just mainly for protection, also for maybe a bit of value here. Did he fold there? That's kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't usually see people take that line as a bluff. Wow. Okay, so that's definitely something to note. Now we'll check and just decide, but yeah, I mean, it's weird because you'd expect him to bet a queen on the flop, but possibly he wouldn't. That's a really shit turn for us, but we should be able to show down here against worse pairs, because we know he has a lot of these. If he bets, it kind of sucks. We probably have to fold, because I just don't think he's going to turn like 7s into a bluff here. He hasn't done that before. On the river as well, I don't think we can get called by too many worse hands, and it's possibly has queens and kings in his range, although not super likely. But I think he's not going to pay us off if we jam here with enough worse hands. And he can certainly have like some marginal ace-x that he checked back the turn with, and he's now made trips with. And when he bets the river, like the flush gets there as well, I don't think he's turning something into a bluff here. He bets very quickly as well, and if he was turning a hand into a bluff, he would be thinking about it a bit more than this. I don't think he would just be instantly betting the river like this. With like pocket 9s, it just doesn't make any sense. So he's repping like sets, which I think bet the turn, but definitely ace-x. But would he call with ace-x? It's really strange. Like, there aren't a whole lot of hands he's repping here, but I don't expect to see bluffs when he bets this quickly, just because he doesn't have any air in his range. He just has hands with showdown value, basically, that are going to check back. So it kind of sucks. I mean, I don't like the fold there, but here I think he folds nothing now to my 3-bets. He just isn't folding to 3-bets at all, so I'm just going to check. I'm going to call 2 here. I think he's going to barrel this turn really wide. He's been barreling a lot. All these ace highs are in my range. I think calling 1 and then folding would be bad. I'm just trying to decide whether I want to try and get him to bluff this river. I mean, I don't think I get called by anything worse if I bet, because if he has an 8, he bets the turn, so I don't think he has any decent bluff catchers. He either has an ace or air, so I think check calling is going to be better than betting on table 5 there. Just hope that he stabs with, I don't know, king high, queen high. But it's certainly good for him not to stab there, because I'm going to have a lot of ace-x in my range for sure when I play it that way. Alright guys, it is 11 PM and I've been playing since around 4 on and off, so I think these have been good videos that I've made. Hope you've enjoyed them. And I'm going to take a well-deserved rest, and I'm going to go play some Skyrim, which is the latest Elder Scrolls game. For any of you that like fantasy RPGs, that know what I'm talking about. If not, then whatever, it's probably not your thing. But yeah, I'm going to go do that and immerse myself in the world of Skyrim for the rest of the night. Let's just play this hand here against this guy first in case we flop a set, because then we might get to stack him, and that would be fun. Oh, no set. Bad times. I'm actually going to play out the rest of these hands. I just don't want Camtasia to maybe break on me if I try to save the video in the middle of this shit. I feel like I get a lot of folds here, and then we get better hands to fold. We're all over this board with our range, so I think we get like under pairs to fold that are better than ours, and we get to protect and just pick up the pot against all his check folds. So I definitely think betting here is super standard. We don't have enough showdown value to just go check and get to the showdown, and it's just a board where he's check folding so much. This guy's just never folding out the blind so far, so we want something a little bit better than 7 deuce suited to open. Yeah, this guy's 3-betting a lot. He looks straightforward. I'm going to 4-bet him because I think he's just going to fold a lot. We've got two reasonable blockers, well, one reasonable blocker and one slightly worse blocker, but I think we get a lot of folds there. The 4-bet bluff. Again, a straightforward player is someone we want to target there because he's not 3-bet, 5-bet bluffing is, and he's been 3-betting and he's still straightforward but with a high 3-bet, so he's almost like your ideal sort of candidate to 4-bet bluff against. If we had a fish here, I'd open this King Jack on table 4, but we don't. So it's kind of like the top of a folding range. This guy dunks. He's check folded 83% of the time that he's checked, so I think he just basically, every time he has air, he check folds, and every time he has something he leads. That would be my conclusion, so I think it's an easy fold on table 6. So we're using a check fold stat there to infer things about his dunking range, which is also yet another example of thinking outside the box and using one stat to determine a different action, and it's something that you should practice doing because it certainly helps. Like, basically, the only way that this number is going to be this high usually is if he's just folding almost every time he checks and every time he bets. Obviously this number isn't, like, fold to c-bet doesn't come into it because he's already donked, so there is no c-bet, so that explains why it would be so high. And when he donks that big, I think it's just he donks his pairs there and he check folds his air, and it's very easy to play against indeed. He probably also checks like extreme nuts like trips and boats, but whatever, there's enough sort of pair hands he's not folding that he's leading there for us just to fold. That's a very easy c-bet. We've got backdoor, flush draw and straight draw plus 2 overs, a very wide range that's folding all day, and then another range that's potentially pretty wide because it's already multi-way by the time he's called. This guy's also very fair fold. I'm not going to be betting many turns against this dude at all because it would need to be like a jam, and I just think we have no fold equity, so even an overcard turn like a queen, I'd probably still just check and hope for free river. He's not the sort of person I expect to have fold equity against. Let's open this because it's the last hand. And we can get called here by worse hands for sure, especially from the whale. So c-bet looks good, plenty of draws that can call, 7s, whatever. And of course we don't really know what we're doing in the turn, so I'm not going to be inducing bluffs against people I don't even know if they're bluffing when I can just sort of bet for value on the flop. And that's the end of the video, so hope you enjoyed, and hope you liked the 6-table format. I think I kept up with it relatively well, although it's certainly a bit tougher. And give me some ideas for future videos, and do remember that coaching is still ongoing, and if you sign up for sessions, I've already got like a sort of discount deal for when you book 5 sessions, which is the block. But on top of that, you're also likely to get at some point to get a free session thrown in there. that's going to appear in a Grinder School video. So not only will you star on Grinder Schools, but you'll also get a lot out of it as well for free, and so will everyone else, and you'll be helping the community too. So I think there's a lot of good stuff going on. So yeah, leave all your questions and comments on the thread, and good luck at the tables, guys. Thanks.